and it's the anniversary coming up of Joe Mascolo's passing away, and you worked with him quite a bit. Do you have any memories or stories of him?
I have wonderful memories of Joe. Some I can share with you.
He might not have always necessarily remembered everything about you, but like for me and him, every time I saw him, I'd call him Papa, and he would. And he'd be like my boy.
I mean, Joseph is such a special guy. He was such a force and such a cupcake. Here, he had this huge presence, but he had the softest, the sweetest heart.
We had one scene once where it was when they blew up Tuscany, and Joe and I were outside, and it blew up. This dumpster blew up, and he fell on top of me, and I went, "Oh, this is really cute." I said, "We don't ever work together, but you're going to fall on top of me, So it was just something funny.
So that's her favorite moment, when Joe Mascola was on top of her.
There you go.
Yeah.
Stefano, you want to play with Stefano?
Stefano, because I would like to talk like that.
Yeah, that's a popular answer.
That's
he
good,
has
Cassie.
his hand like this. I can't do accents.
I almost thought it was him for a second when you did that. It was spot on.
Yeah.
That guy was bigger than life, loved life. He'd come rolling into the studio, and he'd have Pavarotti playing on the stereo of his car, and he'd be behind his wheel, and he was conducting the symphony, and he's singing his brains out in that baritone voice. He'd get out of his car, and he goes, "Drake, I need to talk to you about Stefano, about something that you're doing as John Black, that we have to, take care of this right now." and hold on, I got ahead of myself. He says, "Drake, I got to talk to you about Stefano and something that's going on with John Black." And as soon as we walk through the door of Days of Our Lives, he turns into Stefano with the booming voice, and he stays in character all day long until he walks out through the threshold, and then he has Joe's voice. And that is from old school.
Yeah.
That you are in character. That's what you're taught. Very first day in acting, Columbia Pictures, 1976, was you will be in character all the time, and that was Joe. And God love him.
He was, from the very first, an incredibly good actor. He came in for the first show that he was taping, and he spoke with this Italian accent, and he spoke that way
all day long.
Not just on camera, but all the time we were there, while we were rehearsing, while we were getting ready to do the show.
We began to think English was not his first language.
Maybe this is not an American actor. I finally asked him, are you from Italy? No. He said, "No, I just talk like this. But it helps me if I'm in character right away." And he for
stayed
a
like
long
that for
time
years.
spoke that way every time you talked to him. He spoke like Stefano.
I have never heard Joe speak in his own voice.
Really? Ever? Wow.
We weren't social friends, and I didn't walk him to his car, so yeah.
So at work, we used to have these assigned parking spots that were assigned every day. So you would get an email, and it would tell you, "Oh, parking spot 48." And you'd be like, "Oh, we're spot 48," because there's 1,000 spots, and you're driving around, they're numbered, and they're faded, and whatever. So anyway, one day my phone's totally frozen. I'm running late. And so I just pull in.
You did not do it.
To a spot. So 2 hours or so go by. I'm like, and all of a sudden, "Who's parked in my spot?" Yes. And I was like, "Oh shit." So I didn't even say anything. I just thought, he was on a tirade. That was kind of the one thing, Joe did not like anyone parked in his spot. And so a couple hours later, I go out there, and he's parked behind my car. So now I've got to come clean because I can't get out unless he moves his car. So I wait around, hoping that he's going to leave, and I'm like, oh God, he's up at the end of the day, which is why, I got to go. So I'm like, Joe, sorry, I was me. I parked in his. He was just and I was like, it was an accident, okay? It's totally an accident. And he was like, okay. So anyway, it was just really funny because it was so intimidating. And then I was like, well, I'm not gonna be intimidated by it. It was just an accident with a thing. And then he was super cool and yeah.
More fascinated by the fact that this was a second or third career for him. That he began as a musician, and he played
in the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra.
Really
so
good musician.
he was a fine musician. He loved opera, just like we love opera. Knew all the old-time opera singers, which we would talk about, so that was always fun for us.
I think one of the loveliest things you can say about Joe is, look who chose to marry him. I mean, Pat is an extraordinary woman. She is beloved by all of us and trusted by all of us. She was our head of publicity for a long time, and I thought,
She married Joe?
wow,
Yeah.
wow, that's high marks.
Whenever him and I would sit down and lock eyes, like especially that last scene, which is one of will always through my whole career will stand out, was the one where I sit down and he comes to me after his character is like dead. I remember he just looked at me and he didn't look at a cue card once. I always get emotional. I don't. But he didn't look at a cue card once, and he was like it was almost as if like he was like, okay, this is the one, and it was supposed to be our last scene together. But I'll always remember that because it was as if he just like everything else, like he didn't look at the cue cards. It was almost as if he just remembered every word, and he was so in there. He was so amazing.
But
with
he's
everything.
had the most powerful voice and presence, I think, out of anyone.
He's very good.
Bryan, can you come here and do me a Mascolo? Come here.
What do you think I am, some kind of entertainment toy?
Oh God, Joe's the best. So many times he'd pull me aside and he'd be like, "What are they doing with you?" And I'd be like, "I don't know, Joe." "No, you need to be a Damira. You should be my son. I take you under my wing and show you how to be tough guy, huh? You're a tough Italian guy. So come to my room." He had a great room with a view, the only view of any dressing room. Little bar, you know. "You want a drink?" I said, "Joe, we're at work. I don't know." "How about a drink? Be a man. How about a drink? Give you a drink." He was amazing. Don't park in his parking spot.
Joe is a force of nature.
Yeah.
I think everybody knows that. Joe walks in a room, that room, everybody's going to turn around and they're going to see Joe. But what we shared a tremendous joy in working together, and we talked about it a lot. We would see a script and we knew we were having scenes together because we saw that as this good versus evil battle every time. And you had these two men that would face off with each other, and neither one was going to give an inch. And it was in some ways the Titanic example of those two typical kind of characters. And Joe and I loved doing that so much whenever we could, and I miss that. I miss walking in the DiMera mansion and having my battles with Joe, who, was my father-in-law and my son's grandfather, but yet the most evil man to walk the face of the earth, so it was great.
Because my character is the only real son who's ever yelled at him. I remember one moment where my character, when he's talking, he's basically saying like don't forget about Abigail, and I yell at him, and I remember it wasn't like we rehearsed it, and I didn't rehearse it the way that I did it. I sort of so I rehearsed it kind of like casual, and then in doing the scene, I yelled at him, and he got so angry that he took that little what do you call that thing, like the little stick? No, it's like a little stick that you do like the compose with, and he snapped it in half. And he looked like he was about to get up. Like luckily he couldn't really get up at the time because I feel like he would have chased me down and beat the shit out of me. But it was like those moments in that. But he was just like 1 year. He was amazing guy. Like I wish you could have met him.
Every time I see the picture of him in the DiMera mansion, there's a portrait of him, and I give it the salute, put my heels together, and feel like. If I could do a scene that he would be proud of, then that's good work for me.
And yes, we just did a scene in the DiMera mansion, and I always walk up to his portrait. His portrait's on the wall like this, and I walk up with my hand, and I just fist bump him. Love that guy.